you
Yes.
know? So, and, you know, people don't want, they want to think of their lives in terms of like absolutes and yes, right and wrong. And then they get intimidated and then they're like, well, I didn't like their political campaign. I didn't like something about them.
Yeah.
They get a bad taste in their mouth and then they're
Right.
just like, forget it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, or a politician double crosses them and then they feel like, well, why should I even vote? Because I trusted this person, you know?
Right.
It's just a lot of different reasons, but I think most of it comes from political isolationism and
Okay.
really, so, you know, our Greek philosophies, you know, I don't know if you've talked about dualism before on the podcast.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, we will, I'm sure. But,
Yeah.
well, now we are.
Right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, a dualistic mindset is what we inherited from, in the Western world, is
Yes.
what we inherited from the Greeks.
Mhm.
And they thought in terms of like, you know, what is sacred and secular. They thought in
Yes.
terms of sacred. And so
That's where that came from.
the body
Yeah.
is essentially bad and the spirit can be good, you know? So,
Right.
so we carried, this isn't a biblical mindset,
Yeah.
but we carried this and we overlaid this mindset because it's culture, right? It
It's
colors
Western culture.
everything we
Yeah.
do. So we look at the Bible that way
Yeah.
and, you know, and we try to, when God created everything to be good in the garden, but yet we separate out good and evil. You know, what's of this world is evil.
Right.
And so then we don't engage in what's of this world because we think it's going to contaminate us.
Yeah.
Instead of the biblical model is cultivate this world.
Exactly.
You
exactly.
have a not just a right, but you have a responsibility to cultivate.
That's right.
Speaking of the Garden of Eden, this is what God, this is our calling. This is the calling of mankind.
Yeah.
He gave us the earth
Mhm.
to have dominion, to have authority here. He
That's
gave
right.
this to us. It's our job.
And it's funny you mentioned dualism because the early church they really rooted out Gnosticism, which is based on dualism.
Yes.
Like the body's bad, but the spirit's good.
Yep.
But the problem is God made our bodies. You know, God made the physical earth, like you said, to cultivate.
Yeah.
And we're not doing it because we're afraid of it.
Right.
We're afraid to get dirty, like you said.
And the people on the other side, the people of the world, I guess you would say, that are not believers, they also participate in dualism because they say you need to take God out of this.
Yeah.
Secularism.
Right. Exactly.
And really,
exactly.
you cannot separate worldviews from your life.
Yeah.
But you can pretend that you do.
Yeah, you can pretend, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It's going to impact you no matter what. So, yeah.
I mean, we're here, though. We're at that point where the two polar opposites are now vying for control. And our country is very, polarized. And do you think there's hope to really, unify the country?
Absolutely. I mean, I heard somebody say one time, anytime we don't have hope, we're partnering with the enemy.
Oh, bingo.
So
Bingo.
you got to have hope if you're a believer. That's
Yeah.
what it's about. Believing.
Yeah.
Right? A believing believer.
So, Lee, do we, to bridge the gap, do we wait till after November 5, after the Civil War begins?
Well, that's a loaded question right there. I mean, we're always supposed to be about cultivating our culture because, like you said, from the very beginning of the foundation, and we were supposed to work the land, and I think part of that is cultivating our culture. So, no, we're always the same. We're always salt and we're always light.
Yeah.
And this is another cool thing about salt and light. Where does salt come from?
The earth.
The earth.
Yeah.
Where does light come from?
The sun.
Above. So think about what Jesus was trying to say. He said, you're supposed to bring truth. You're supposed to bring purity, wholeness, all that good stuff. But you're also supposed to bring salt, which is contextualized in the world. So he's talking about where heaven meets earth.
Yeah.
And so without, some of us can bring a lot of light, but we're not very salty, and it never gets to the earth.
Right.
It never actually
point.
transforms the earth because we don't know how to be salt. And then other people can err on the side of salt and try to be relevant all day long, but they're not actually bringing any truth into the world.
Yeah.
So it's those two paradigms coalescing into a paradox
Yeah.
where that's where wisdom is.
That's really good. You know, that's a challenge for our viewers because they're like of the Western mindset. So when you say tension between two things or paradox,
Yeah.
they get mad. You know?
Because it's not black and white necessarily. Well, I mean, everything is spiritual.
Everything is spiritual.
You know, we are holistic human beings. We can't separate out our worldviews from our everyday life, and that's why the whole thing about education, I'm so passionate about school choice and things like that, because you know, all these teachers, they're bringing their worldview into the classroom.
Yes.
And you know, maybe they try to leave it at home or whatever, but you're going to have a worldview when you teach kids.
Yeah.
You can't not have it, you know, whether it's dualism or whether it's integrating, you know, I mean, so we have to be realistic and go like, there's no way we can just check our worldviews at the door. It's just,
as a Christian, you want to, I mean, our goal is to really be fishers of men, influencers, cultivators, right?
Yeah.
So in this political climate, though, and you mentioned it, once we just do a little bit of that, now we're Christian nationalists. You know what I mean? Like now
you
we're
can be labeled
overbearing, or
Yeah.
you know, even just stating your faith. Some people think it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that Jesus was political.
Right.
I mean, just because their politics looked way different, they didn't separate out their faith from their politics. I mean, the part of the ruling body was the Sadducees and the Pharisees.
Right.
Like those were two different political parties.
Yes. Yes.
And then the media would come at Jesus with questions.
Yeah.
You know, he was actually a figure. He was like a real legit figure because people followed him.
Yeah.
And he was a political threat.
Right.
You know,
right. Absolutely.
the Pharisees were like, "Oh, Jesus believes in resurrection of the dead. That's what we believe. Maybe we can get him on our side." Like they had him over to
Right.
their house, and like he ate with tax collectors, which is another part of the political ruling body. There were the Herodians, and so we think, well, Jesus only spoke to these religious people, but the religious people were the political people.
Yeah, they were.